The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 100 different worlds. Lights floated above them like tiny stars, and the air carried the mixed scents of dozens of alien species. It was a place where wars were prevented and treaties were signed. It was a place where words carried the weight of entire civilizations. Commander Daniel Harris stood at the human delegation's platform, his hands clasped behind his back. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and calm brown eyes that had seen both war and peace. For 15 years, he had served as humanity's voice in this chamber. He had argued, negotiated, and sometimes even shouted. Today, he simply listened. Counselor Vexthale of the Karathi Dominion was speaking. The reptilian diplomat stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like yellow flames. His voice echoed through the chamber with obvious contempt. The Karathi Dominion has decided to expand our borders, Vexthal announced. The systems known as Haven, New Promise, and Meridian will be incorporated into our territory within the next cycle. A wave of murmurs spread through the council. Those 3 systems were allied with Earth. They were under human protection. High Speaker Marth, the ancient leader of the council, raised one of his 4 hands for silence. His gray skin was wrinkled with age, and his large black eyes showed concern. Counselor Vexthal, those systems have existing treaties with the Human Confederation. Surely you are aware of this. Vexthal made a sound that might have been laughter. Treaties with humans? The Karathi do not recognize agreements made with primitive meat creatures. They crawled out of their mud barely 3 centuries ago. They have no claim to anything beyond their single pathetic world. More murmurs filled the chamber. Several delegates looked toward the human platform, expecting an outburst. Humans were known for their passionate responses, their loud protests, their endless debates. Daniel Harris said nothing. Vexthal continued, clearly enjoying himself. The humans may protest if they wish. They may send their angry messages and wave their little weapons. It will change nothing. The Karathi have conquered 12 species in the last century. What can one young race do against our might? High Speaker Morth turned to the human delegation. Commander Harris, do you wish to respond to these statements? Every eye in the chamber focused on the human ambassador. Daniel Harris took a slow breath. His expression remained completely calm, almost peaceful. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and steady. I would like formal clarification, he said. Is the Karathi Dominion officially declaring its intention to annex 3 systems under human protection, in violation of the Nexus Accords? Vexthal's scales rippled with amusement. I believe I made myself clear, human. Your protected worlds will become Karathi territory. Your people there will serve us or leave. This is not a negotiation. Daniel Harris nodded once, slowly. I understand. He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps were the only sound in the suddenly silent chamber. He did not look back. He did not make threats. He did not demand another vote or call for sanctions. He simply left. The doors closed behind him with a soft sound that seemed very loud. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Vexthal laughed, a harsh and grating sound. It seems the humans have accepted their fate. Perhaps they are wiser than I thought. But not everyone in the chamber was laughing. High Speaker Morth stared at the closed doors with an expression that was difficult to read. Beside him, the ambassador from the Velinari Federation leaned close and whispered, High Speaker, I am troubled. As am I, Morth replied quietly. I have known Commander Harris for many years. I have seen him argue for hours over minor trade agreements. I have seen him fight for every small advantage. I have never seen him simply walk away. The Velinari ambassador, a being with pale blue skin and silver eyes, nodded slowly. I have spent decades studying human behavior. They are a loud species. They argue, they debate, they protest. When they are angry, they shout. When they are frustrated, they complain. And when they are silent? Morath asked. The Velinari's silver eyes grew dark. When humans go silent, it means they have stopped talking. It means they have decided that words are no longer useful. In my studies of their history, the silence always comes before their most terrible actions. Morath felt a chill pass through his old bones. You think the humans are planning something? I think, the Velinari said carefully, the Council of Vexthil has made a serious mistake. Humans who argue are humans who still believe in peaceful solutions. Humans who go quiet have moved beyond that. They have made a decision, and they are no longer interested in discussing it. Across the chamber, Vexthil was accepting congratulations from his allies. He seemed completely satisfied with himself. The mighty Karathi had shown these young humans their place in the galaxy. But in the corridors outside the council chamber, Daniel Harris walked with purpose. He pulled out a communication device and spoke a single sentence. Begin Protocol 7. On the other end, Admiral Patricia Cole received the message. She was a woman with short gray hair and eyes like cold steel. She had commanded Earth's defensive fleet for 12 years, and she had hoped she would never have to use it for its true purpose. Understood, she replied. We go silent. Within the hour, every human diplomatic channel went dark. Every embassy stopped responding to messages. Every human ship in neutral space began moving toward home. No explanations were given. No warnings were issued. The humans simply stopped talking, and across the galaxy, those who truly understood humanity felt the first stirrings of fear, because they knew what the silence meant. They knew that when humans stopped making noise, it was not because they had given up, it was because they had nothing left to say. 3 weeks passed, and the galaxy grew nervous. Admiral Patricia Cole stood in the heart of Earth's military command center, surrounded by screens and officers who moved with quiet efficiency. No one spoke louder than necessary. No one wasted words. The humans had embraced their silence completely. Status report, Cole said softly. Captain Lawrence Bennett, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and steady hands, stepped forward. All civilian evacuations from Haven, New Promise, and Meridian are complete. Not a single person remains in those systems. Equipment, food supplies, medical stations, everything valuable has been moved. The Karathi? They're confused, Admiral. Our intelligence shows their commanders arguing among themselves. They don't understand why we haven't responded. Cole allowed herself a small smile. Good. Let them wonder. In a nearby room, Dr. Hannah Price was briefing a group of senior officers. She was a small woman with glasses and wild curly hair, but her mind was sharper than any weapon in the fleet. She had spent her life studying military history, and she knew exactly what humanity was doing. Throughout human history, she explained, our most devastating responses have always followed periods of silence. Before the great wars of our past, there were always moments when negotiations stopped, when leaders stopped making speeches, when the shouting ended and the quiet began. A young officer raised his hand. Why does silence work so well? Because most species, including humans, are uncomfortable with silence, Price answered. When someone yells at you, you know what they're feeling. You can respond to it. But when someone goes completely quiet, you don't know what they're thinking. You don't know what they're planning. Your imagination fills the empty space with your worst fears. She pointed to a star map on the wall. Right now, the Karathi are trying to figure out what we're doing. They've sent dozens of messages demanding responses. They've threatened us, insulted us, even tried to apologize slightly. We haven't replied to any of it. And that scares them? It terrifies them. Because they conquered 12 species before us, and every single one of those species did the same thing. They protested, they begged, they threatened, they surrendered. The Karathi know how to handle all of those responses. They have no idea how to handle nothing. Meanwhile, on the edge of human space, Lieutenant Marcus Gray sat at his monitoring station. His job was to intercept and translate Karathi communications. For 3 weeks, he had listened to their confusion grow. "I'm picking up another transmission," he reported to his supervisor. "It's from the Karathi fleet commander to their High Council." He played the translated message through the speakers. The Karathi commander's voice was tense and irritated. "We have received no response from the humans for 21 cycles. All diplomatic channels remain silent. Their military frequencies are encrypted beyond our ability to decode. We do not know the location of their fleet. We do not know their intentions. I am requesting guidance on how to proceed." The response from the Karathi Council was sharp and dismissive. "Proceed with the invasion as planned." The humans are clearly too frightened to respond. Their silence proves their weakness. Lieutenant Gray shook his head slowly. "They really don't understand, do they?" His supervisor, a veteran officer with decades of experience, sighed. "No, they don't. And by the time they figure it out, it will be far too late." Across the galaxy, other species were beginning to react. The Velinari Federation had quietly pulled all their ambassadors out of Karathi space. The Nexus Trade Coalition had suspended all business dealings with the Karathi Dominion. Even species that had no alliance with humanity were distancing themselves from the coming conflict. A Velinari historian named Sevrath had sent a private message to the Karathi leadership. It was a warning, written in the desperate hope that bloodshed might still be prevented. "You have made a critical error in your assessment of humanity," the message read. "I have studied their species for 60 years. I have learned their languages, read their literature, analyzed their wars. And I tell you this with absolute certainty. Humans do not go silent because they are afraid. They go silent when they have run out of patience. They go silent when they have decided that talking is pointless. They go silent when they are preparing to act." The message continued with examples from human history. Wars that began after periods of failed negotiation. Revenge that came years after the original offense. Justice that arrived when criminals thought they had been forgotten. "Humans have a saying," Sevrath wrote. "Beware the anger of a patient man." The Karathi have awoken something that should have been left sleeping. I strongly advise you to apologize, withdraw your claims, and hope that the humans are still willing to listen. Because if they have truly gone silent, then they have already decided your fate. And nothing you say now will change it. The Karathi leadership ignored the warning. They called Sevrath a coward and a fool. They continued their preparations for invasion in the darkness of space. Human ships moved like ghosts. They made no announcements. They sent no signals. They simply positioned themselves and waited. Admiral Cole reviewed the final preparations aboard her command vessel. Captain Bennett stood beside her, looking at the tactical display. "Everything is in place, Admiral. We can strike at any moment." Cole nodded slowly. "Not yet. Let them commit to the invasion first. Let them spread their forces thin. Let their confidence become their weakness. How much longer? As long as it takes. Patience is our greatest weapon right now." She looked out at the stars through the viewport. "The Karathi think our silence means surrender. They will learn the truth soon enough. But first, let them walk deeper into the trap. Let them wonder. Let them fear what they cannot see." Somewhere in the void between stars, the human fleet waited in perfect silence, ready for the signal that would end the quiet and begin the storm. Fleet Commander Krathvalum stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars streak past as his invasion force traveled toward human space. He commanded 300 vessels, each one bristling with weapons. It was the largest Karathi fleet assembled in decades, and he was proud to lead it. "How much longer until we reach the first system?" he demanded. 2 hours, Commander, his navigation officer replied. Krathvalum made a satisfied sound deep in his throat. The humans had been silent for almost a month now. No protests, no threats, no desperate attempts at negotiation. He had expected at least some resistance, some show of defiance. Instead, there was nothing but empty silence. They are cowards, he announced to his bridge crew. They know they cannot defeat us, so they hide and hope we will forget about them. But the Karathi do not forget. The Karathi do not show mercy to the weak. His officers made sounds of agreement. They had all heard the stories of previous conquests. Species that surrendered were enslaved. Species that fought were destroyed. Either way, the Karathi always won. 2 hours later, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Haven system. Krathvalum leaned forward in his command chair, eager to see his enemies flee before him. The system was empty. Where are they? Krathvalum growled. His sensor officer worked frantically at her station. I'm detecting nothing, Commander. No ships, no defensive platforms, no communication signals. What about the colony? Scanning now. There was a pause. The colony is abandoned. All structures are intact, but there are no life signs. No equipment, no supplies, no people. Everything has been removed. Krathvalum stared at the empty world on his view screen. Haven had been home to nearly 2 million humans. Now it was a ghost town, silent and still. They ran, he said finally. The cowards ran rather than face us. But even as he spoke the words, something cold settled in his stomach. This did not feel like victory. This felt like something else entirely. Set course for New Promise, he ordered. Perhaps we will find our prey there. The fleet moved on. When they reached New Promise, they found the same thing. Empty stations orbiting a silent world. Abandoned homes with doors left open. Parks where children had played, now still as graves. Not a single human remained. Krathval's unease grew stronger. The third system. Take us to Meridian, now. Meridian was supposed to be the most heavily populated of the 3 worlds. It had factories, military bases, and millions of civilians. Surely the humans would make their stand there. But Meridian was empty too. Every building, every base, every ship had been stripped clean and abandoned. The only thing left was a small automated beacon floating in orbit around the planet. What is that? Krathvalum demanded. It appears to be a communication device, Commander. It's broadcasting a message on repeat. Play it. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and cold. It was human. We gave you the chance to reconsider. That was all. That was all. Just 7 words, repeated over and over again in the silence of empty space. Krathvalum felt true fear for the first time in his life. He had conquered 12 species. He had destroyed fleets and burned worlds. But he had never faced anything like this. The emptiness was worse than any battle formation. The silence was worse than any war cry. Commander, his communications officer said nervously, our soldiers are becoming unsettled. There are rumors spreading through the fleet. What kind of rumors? They're calling it the Quiet Death. They say the humans have become ghosts. They say anyone who enters human space will disappear without a trace. Foolish superstition, Krathvalum snapped. But his voice lacked conviction. Back on Nexus Prime, Councillor Vexthel was having problems of his own. The Galactic Council had convened an emergency session, and he was facing uncomfortable questions. Where have the humans gone? High Speaker Morath demanded. How should I know? Vexthel replied, his scales flushing with irritation. They disappeared like smoke. They won't respond to any communications. You provoked them, another councillor accused. You insulted them and threatened their people. Now they have vanished, and no one knows what they are planning. Vexthil tried to sound confident. They are hiding, running away. This proves what I said all along. Humans are weak and cowardly. When faced with true power, they flee. High Speaker Morath shook his ancient head. I do not think they are running, Counselor. I think they are preparing. Preparing for what? That is what frightens me. We don't know. The Volinari ambassador rose from her seat. Her silver eyes were cold and hard. I will tell you what the humans are doing, since you are too blind to see it yourselves. They are giving you exactly what you wanted. What do you mean? You wanted their worlds. You said you would take them. So the humans have given them to you. Empty. Worthless. You have conquered nothing but dust and silence. Vexthil felt his throat tighten. But where did they go? Everywhere and nowhere. They are in the dark spaces between stars. They are watching you right now, and you cannot see them. You cannot hear them. You will not know they are there until they want you to know. The ambassador paused. And by then, it will be far too late. In the depths of space, Admiral Patricia Cole received reports of the Karathi fleet's progress. She watched them stumble through empty systems, growing more confused and frightened with each passing hour. They've taken all 3 systems, Captain Bennett reported. They control nothing but ghosts. Cole nodded slowly. Have they spread their forces out? Yes, Admiral. They've established garrisons on all 3 worlds. Their fleet is now divided across 3 systems instead of concentrated in one place. Good. Cole's eyes hardened. Then it's almost time. What are your orders? Admiral Cole looked at the star map at the 12 Karathi military installations marked in red. Shipyards, supply depots, communication centers. The infrastructure of an empire that had bullied the galaxy for too long. We've been silent long enough, she said quietly. It's time to teach them what silence really means. The attack came without warning. At exactly the same moment. Across 12 different star systems, human warships appeared out of nowhere. They did not announce themselves. They did not demand surrender. They simply arrived and began their work. At the Karathi shipyard above their industrial world of Vexenar, Captain Lawrence Bennett commanded the strike force. His carrier ship Resolute dropped out of faster-than-light travel alongside 30 other vessels, all moving in perfect coordination. Target the construction base, Bennett ordered calmly. Leave the civilian habitats untouched. The Karathi defenders barely had time to react. Human weapons were precise and devastating. Missiles struck exactly where they were aimed. Laser fire cut through armored hulls with surgical accuracy. In less than an hour, the largest shipyard in Karathi space was reduced to floating debris. Not a single civilian was harmed. Not a single non-military target was touched. Similar scenes played out across Karathi territory. Supply depots were destroyed. Military bases were eliminated. Communication arrays were silenced. The infrastructure that supported the Karathi war machine crumbled in a single coordinated assault. And through it all, the humans said nothing. No battle cries, no demands, no threats. Just the quiet efficiency of destruction. Fleet Commander Krathvalum received the news aboard his flagship in the Haven system. His communications officer was trembling as he delivered the reports. Commander, we've lost contact with High Command. The military communication network is down. Reports are coming in from scattered sources. Our shipyards at Vexenar are gone. The supply depot at Karth Prime is burning. At least 8 major installations have been completely destroyed. Krathvalum felt the blood drain from his scales. That's impossible. How did they know where to strike? How did they get past our defenses? I don't know, Commander. They appeared everywhere at once. Our forces had no warning. Order the fleet to regroup. We need to return to Karathi space immediately. His navigation officer looked up with fear in her eyes. Commander, I've been analyzing the human attack patterns. They've destroyed every supply depot between here and home. Our fuel reserves will not last the journey back. The trap closed around Krathvalum like the jaws of a great beast. The humans had not been hiding. They had not been running. They had been preparing this moment for weeks, watching Karathi movements, planning their strikes, waiting for the perfect moment to act. We're stranded, Krathvalum whispered. Then, for the first time in a month, a human voice broke the silence. It came through every communication channel simultaneously, reaching every Karathi vessel, every remaining installation, every corner of their crumbling empire. Admiral Patricia Cole spoke with cold clarity. Attention, Karathi forces. You wanted all worlds. We decided you don't get to keep yours. That was all. The transmission ended, and silence returned. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council erupted into chaos. High Speaker Morath called for emergency session after emergency session, trying to understand what was happening. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one more alarming than the last. The humans have crippled the Karathi military in less than 6 hours, an intelligence officer reported. Their strikes were perfectly coordinated. Their targets were exclusively military. Civilian casualties are minimal. Councillor Vexthil was no longer proud or confident. He stood before the council, his scales pale with fear. This must be stopped. The humans are savages. They must be condemned. High Speaker Morath stared at him with ancient, tired eyes. You started this, Councillor. You insulted them. You threatened their people. You ignored every warning. Now you face the consequences. But they can't do this. There are laws. There are rules. You said humans were primitive, Morath replied coldly. You said their treaties didn't matter. You said they were beneath your notice. It seems you were wrong about many things. Ambassador Daniel Harris entered the council chamber quietly. He had not spoken publicly since the day he walked out of this same room weeks ago. Every eye turned to him. Vexthil rushed toward him, desperation overcoming his pride. Ambassador, please, we must negotiate. Surely there are terms you will accept. Tell us what you want, and we will give it to you. Harris looked at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and measured. We haven't decided yet. Then he took his seat and said nothing more. The silence that followed was suffocating. Councillors who had laughed at humanity weeks ago now sat frozen with fear. They understood, finally, what human silence meant. It meant that nothing was certain. It meant that mercy was not guaranteed. It meant that the humans had all the power, and they were in no hurry to use it. For 3 days, Harris attended council sessions without speaking. He listened to pleas, arguments, and threats. He watched Vexthil beg for intervention from other species. He observed as one by one, every galactic power refused to help the Karathi. We will not interfere, the Velinari ambassador announced. The Karathi brought this upon themselves. Let them face the consequences alone, other species agreed. The Karathi had bullied the galaxy for too long. Now they were learning what it felt like to be helpless, and no one was willing to save them. Back in Karathi space, Fleet Commander Krathvalum made a decision. His fleet was stranded, his empire was burning, and his people were dying. He had only one option left. Send a message to the human admiral, he ordered. Tell her we surrender. Unconditionally, we will accept any terms. His officers carried out the order. The message was sent into the darkness, joining all the other Karathi communications that had gone unanswered for weeks. For 6 hours, there was no response. Krathvalum waited in agony, not knowing if his plea had been heard or ignored. The silence pressed down on him like the weight of a dying star. Then, finally, Admiral Cole replied. Her message was brief. Your surrender is acknowledged. Disable all weapons and await further instructions. Any hostile action will be met with immediate response. Further terms will be communicated when we are ready. Krathvalum slumped in his command chair, broken. The mighty Karathi, conquerors of 12 species, had been brought to their knees without ever fighting a proper battle. They had been defeated by empty worlds and patient silence, and the humans still had not told them what would happen next. 1 month after the surrender, the Galactic Council gathered for a historic session. The Great Hall was filled to capacity, with representatives from every known species watching either in person or through broadcast channels. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans would say. Ambassador Daniel Harris rose from the human delegation's platform. He looked out at the assembled counselors, at the beings who had once dismissed his species as primitive and insignificant. His face showed no anger, no pride, no satisfaction. Only calm resolve. "Thank you all for attending," he began. "I know many of you have waited a long time for this moment. You have questions about what happened and why. I will try to answer them." He paused, letting the silence stretch for a moment. Old habits died hard. 5 weeks ago, the Karathi Dominion announced their intention to conquer 3 worlds under human protection. They insulted my species. They dismissed our treaties. They threatened our people with enslavement or exile. Harris walked slowly across the platform, his footsteps the only sound in the chamber. I could have argued. I could have threatened. I could have demanded emergency votes and sanctions. These are the normal tools of diplomacy, and I have used them many times before. He stopped and faced the council. But the Karathi had made clear that they were not interested in diplomacy. They had decided that humans were beneath their notice. They had decided that our words meant nothing. So we stopped using words. A ripple of murmurs passed through the assembly. Harris waited until they faded. Human history is filled with conflicts. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We have learned many lessons from those fights. And the most important lesson is this: when someone refuses to listen, talking becomes pointless. Words wasted on deaf ears only delay the necessary action. He clasped his hands behind his back, standing straight and tall. We gave the Karathi every opportunity to reconsider. We left our worlds empty to show them that conquest would gain them nothing. We remained silent to give them time to understand their mistake. They chose to ignore these warnings. They chose to view our patience as weakness. So we showed them what silence truly meant. High Speaker Morath raised a trembling hand. "Ambassador Harris, the Karathi military has been devastated. Their fleet is stranded in human space. Their empire is in ruins. What are your terms for peace?" Harris met the ancient speaker's gaze. "Our terms are simple. We require a formal apology from the Karathi government for their unprovoked aggression and their insults against humanity. We require a binding guarantee that the Karathi will never threaten human-allied worlds again. We require access for humanitarian aid to reach Karathi civilians affected by the conflict." He paused. "That is all." The chamber fell into stunned silence. No territorial demands. No resources. No tribute. No punishment beyond what had already been delivered. Councillor Vexthel, who had been stripped of his rank but allowed to attend as an observer, stared in disbelief. "That's all? After everything after what was done to us, you ask only for an apology?" Harris looked at the former councillor. There was no hatred in his eyes, only something that might have been pity. "We did not fight this war for conquest, Counselor. We did not seek to destroy your species or enslave your people. We fought because you threatened innocence under our protection. We fought because you refused to listen to reason. The moment you surrendered, the fighting stopped." He turned back to address the full council. "Humans are not monsters. We do not enjoy violence. We do not celebrate war. But we have learned through long and painful experience that some aggressors cannot be stopped with words alone. When peaceful options fail, we act. We act decisively, We act completely, and then we stop. Admiral Patricia Cole was not present at the council, but her words were being broadcast across the galaxy. She had given a statement that was played now for all to hear. The human military does not fight for glory or territory. We fight to protect our people and our allies. Every Karathi military target we destroyed was chosen to minimize civilian casualties. We could have done much worse. We chose not to. The message continued. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy. Humanity prefers peace. We would rather trade than fight, rather build than destroy. But if you threaten what we love, we will not argue with you. We will not debate. We will simply act. And by the time you hear us coming, it will already be over. 3 months later, a Velinari diplomat named Sevrath stood before a classroom of young students from dozens of different species. They had gathered to learn about galactic history, and today's lesson was about humanity. Can anyone tell me, Sevrath asked, what is the most dangerous sign from a human? A young Karathi student raised her hand. Her scales were bright and new, and she had never known a galaxy where her species was the dominant power. When they attack? Sevrath smiled gently. No, young one. When humans attack, the danger is already present. But it is not the most dangerous sign. Another student, this one from a species that lived on gas-giant planets, offered an answer. When they make threats. Closer, but still not quite right. Sevrath activated a holographic display showing Commander Harris leaving the council chamber weeks ago. This is the most dangerous sign. Can anyone tell me what is happening? The student studied the image. The human was simply walking away. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't doing anything at all. He's leaving, someone said. He's not saying anything. Exactly. Sevrath nodded. He is silent. And human silence is the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. The diplomat dimmed the lights and brought up historical records. Throughout their history, humans have shown a consistent pattern. When they are angry, they shout. When they are frustrated, they complain. When they believe dialogue is possible, they argue endlessly. These are all manageable situations. The records showed scenes of human protests, debates, and negotiations. Loud, passionate, full of emotion. But when humans go quiet, Sevrath continued, it means something very different. It means they have decided that words are no longer useful. It means they have made a decision about your fate. It means they are no longer interested in changing their minds. A small student near the front raised her hand nervously. So how do you know if humans are angry with you? Sevrath looked down at her with ancient, knowing eyes. If they are yelling at you, you are safe. It means they still believe you can be reasoned with. It means they still have hope that you will change. The diplomat paused, letting the lesson sink in. But if a human has gone quiet, if they have stopped responding to your messages, if they have walked away without a word, Sevrath's voice dropped low. Then pray to whatever gods you believe in. Because the silence is not surrender. The silence is not fear. The silence is the sound of humanity deciding that you are no longer worth talking to. And nothing in this galaxy is more terrifying than that. The classroom sat in perfect silence, learning the lesson that the Karathi had learned too late. In the vast darkness between stars, human ships continued their patrols. They protected the weak. They watched for threats. And they waited, patient and quiet, for anyone foolish enough to disturb the peace they had built. The galaxy had learned to listen for human silence, and they were very careful never to cause it again.